Good evening and welcome to the council meeting for the 21st of March 2024. Fire evacuation procedures for tonight. There is no fire drill planned, so if the fire alarm sounds, please follow the community staff and leave by the exit nearest to the large screen at the front of the room and proceed down to the fire exit to the courtyard. Once it is safe to return, councillors will receive a text message. Officers will also advise when it is safe to return to the meeting. We are recording the meeting this evening. The webcast will be transmitted live and will also be available on the council's website following the meeting. Generally, the public seating areas are not filmed. However, by entering St. George's Suite and using the public seating area, you are consenting to being filmed and to the possible use of those images and sound recordings for webcasting and training purposes. Former Mayor. Before formally opening this meeting, I would like to provide the opportunity for the council to pay tribute to the former mayor, Councillor Luke Mackenzie, who, as we are all aware, sadly passed away last week after a short illness. Councillor Luke Mackenzie was a friend, a colleague, and a great politician. He served with passion, not only in Basildon, but in wider spaces nationally. He's very a friendly friend is the way I can describe him. And I just want to say that it's a shame he's gone so soon. It's a shame he's gone so young. But the legacy, the achievements that he has made within politics just shows the passion that he had to serve. He served the community very well, very passionate about charities, and we will miss him dearly. I pray that his soul will rest in perfect peace, and I pray that we will all be comforted in this period. Can we now stand for 2 minutes silence? Rest in peace, Luke. Just before I invite other members to pay their tributes to Luke Mackenzie, I would just like to remind us all that there is a service for him tomorrow in town at 2 p.m. and it would be great if we could all be in attendance. I now invite members of the chamber to say a word for Luke. I will give the honour to start us off this evening to the leader of the council, Councillor Andy Baggott.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I think the first time I remember meeting Luke must have been 2006, I think it was, during the campaign where he was standing in Vange at the time. I remember we were walking the streets, we got a phone call, and it was the Daily Telegraph wanting to actually interview him because if he was elected, it would mean that he would be the youngest ever elected councillor for Basildon. And of course, he was very excited about the fact that there he was on the streets of Vange, but the Daily Telegraph wanted to speak to him. And they did, and he got elected. That didn't actually stop him being grounded. You know, even at that time, he still had his feet firmly on the ground with regard to what he wanted to do and wasn't going to get that sort of publicity go to his head. Having said that, he was a bit of a lad in his early days, and he certainly liked his drink. And over time, he matured. And when it actually came to dealing with people, he actually always remained grounded. He had an empathy, which he developed over time with people, and a very easy manner. And that was coupled with, as we all know, quite a dry sense of humour. Even as mayor, he kept it real and had that easygoing attitude about him. I think it'd be fair to say that it was always Luke the mayor as opposed to the mayor Luke. He never forgot where he came from. He never forgot, you know, his background, and whether it was having a pint or two in the Langdon Centre or having an ice cream in all his mayor regalia at Pitsea Carnival, he always had that easygoing manner and was someone that you felt you could approach and was approachable and human. And that's the thing that I remember the most about Luke. He was a fine human being. The loss is immeasurable, but so is the love he left behind. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Craig Rimmer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. And also thank you to members from all parties who actually shared their thoughts and condolences at the time, and it was much appreciated, the support and love you all showed as well. I'm wearing pink today because I couldn't take a photo without Luke being in a pink t-shirt, and it was really frustrating because I thought he only had the one pink t-shirt. And I was thinking, this is not good for the campaign literature, Luke, because they're just going to think you're wearing the same shirt all the time. But, so that's in memory of him. He was a character, he was much loved in the borough, and it was surprising sometimes. In 2021 we were knocking in St Martin's, he was wrapped up for the winter and you could only see his eyes, and this chap at the doorstep went, "Is that Luke Mackenzie?" How can you tell? I saw him on telly the other day on Channel 5 about Sadler's Farm, and then he was like, about Dale Farm, sorry, and then, you know, and he always drinks in the Moon, and I always see him in the Moon, and I thought, wow, you've just spotted him by his eyes, and that's how memorable a chap he was. You know, he's a lovely guy, and he's going to be much missed. A lot of people use the descriptor unassuming, and I think he got a lot done. He was driven. He's very passionate for Basildon. One of the first things he said, and I've said this a few times, but in 2018 we were knocking on doors, and you know, we were 6 weeks away from the election, and he said, "Will you nominate me for deputy mayor?" And I went, "Luke, we haven't even been elected yet. You know, and you're thinking about deputy mayor. And he said, well, I really want to be mayor one day. I said, yep, okay, I'll do that. And he was right. We were elected, and it took a little bit longer to become deputy mayor and then mayor, but he did so, and I'm really glad that he did so, because he packed a lot into a short life, and being mayor of Basildon, because you know he was very Basildon, he was very Newtown. That was a pleasure and a privilege for him, and a real honour, and I'm glad he actually got to do that. I also remember, you know, he brought forward the pollinator policy. He didn't ask Group first about it, by the way. He just brought it to council. And a lot of people, I think Andy went mad about it at the time. You know, what is this? We haven't done due diligence on this. But we all got behind it. All members voted for it unanimously. And now we've got wildflowers on roundabouts in parks. And, you know, and I hope that when we see those, we can think of Luke and actually this sort of rewilding that's going on now because of his foresight on such issues. And he was passionate about things like the boy racers and making sure, sorry, Councillor McGeorge, I know you used to hang out with them, but you know, he was passionate about that, and you know, he led the way on trying to get the Public Spaces Protection Order implemented, and it's something that's had a sort of benefit in other areas as well, because it's being able to tackle antisocial behaviour and crime in other parts of the borough in other ways. So that's sort of testament to how sometimes you can be a quiet person but have a real drive about you and really get things done, and you don't need to be particularly boastful about it. To be honest with you, I wish I had half the man's character, because the way he faced death was so stoical and so practical and so loving, that he was actually just thinking, you know, how he was thinking about retiring from the Basildon seat and not standing again, who could come up instead. So Craig, please pick somebody with a surname that's O for R, you know, a T or an S or something. I want you lower on the ballot paper. Obviously, we didn't do it. No, we won't tell you who, but we didn't do it that way. But you know, he was always thinking. He was thinking about other people, and that just in that moment, where I'm pretty sure I'd be cracking up with the sort of diagnosis he had, and you know, it's a privilege, you know, to talk to him and think, and he was determined to be at the dinner, and he wasn't, and it's a shame that he didn't get there, but he was determined that that show would go on and raise money for charity, for the Mayor's charity, for children's cancer. He was, you know, he's, so I think in many ways, I think in life, in death, he's shown us all some lessons to learn from. And I hope we carry his memories, his lessons from now on. And yeah, thank you for everybody's kind words and support during this time. Cheers.
Thank you. Councillor Blake.
Thank you for that. Just a few words from me. Knowing him, rather than a councillor, known him as a friend for God's known years, from when he very first started. And it was with the YCs, I don't know what they're called now, whatever they're Conservative, but it was YCs at the time, Young Conservatives at the time, and no, I wasn't part of them, as you could understand that, but always to go out drinking with them, have a laugh with Luke. And what I will say about Luke, every time we went out, he was with a different woman. He had this amazing power to be with the ladies, absolutely amazing power. I kept on asking how he had done it, but he never did tell me. But also, one of the other things I remember when he was mayor, and it was the Queen's Platinum. I asked him if he would come to a street party that I was going to attend. He initially said, really, if I go to one, I've got to go to them all, which I totally understand. And I said, I accept that, Luke. I said, but can you just do it for a friend, just turn up for half hour, you know, so. I said, yeah, okay, so there Luke Watts gets on his motorbike, as you would expect, comes down to the, over the Billericay to Thriftwood Lane for the party. And the half hour turned into about 2.5 hours, because that's the sort of bloke he was. Literally spoke to everybody along there, had the photos done in his regalia, and then he got on his bike again, obviously, and went off. So, fond memories, very sad loss for the community. And I'm sure there's one part there, we had a dinner on Friday night in honour of his charities and in honour of him, which was exceptionally good. And I'm sure his father won't mind me mentioning this when he was doing a little bit of a speech, because this just sums Luke up. He was there with his mum at the final stages, and he was saying some scatty things as it was happening at the time, but one of the things he kept on saying was Margaret Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, Margaret Thatcher, and that's just to show how good his politics was as far as I'm concerned. But I've always said it's not how long you live your life, it's how you... it's not how long you live life, it's how you live your life is important, how you do with it and what you make of it. And I think Luke was a classic example of that. So, looking forward to more, as much as you can look to those things tomorrow, to pay more respects to Luke. But a great man that will be sorely missed by everybody. Thank you.
Councillor Larkin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Luke was a good friend and also a family friend. He was a very good friend of my grandson, Adam. So it went back a long way before politics with my friendship with Luke. But as usual, Basildon toxic politics got in the way of our friendship, which was so regrettable to me. Not being a hypocrite, I don't want to stand here this evening and be a hypocrite for not answering your texts. Are we still friends? He sent to me. You lived a short life, you deserved much, much more, but was so proud to nearly serve the Basildon Borough for nearly 2 years as our mayor, trying to be considerate and kind to everyone. Sadly, the cruel fate of cancer took that away, but your memory will always be with us at Basildon. My memory of Luke that I will treasure will be the telephone call I had one evening before he was mayor. Hi Mo, what advice and how can you help me? I'm actually going to be the mayor of Basildon. So, I just want to say, Mo, you was the best mayor. And I just want to ask you how you were successful, and I want to be successful too, which was a compliment to me from Luke. My reply was conversations between Luke and myself I don't wish to comment on. Rest in peace, Lukey, and God bless you.
Councillor Schrader.
Madam Deputy Mayor, we all have turning points in our lives, and some are easier to pinpoint than others. One of mine was October 22nd, 2010. I'd renewed my membership of the Conservative Party, and for, I think, the first time ever, I was actually contacted by someone. The Deputy Chairman membership of the local association emailed me, pointing out that as I was under 30, which, believe it or not, I was at the time, I was automatically a member of Conservative Future, Councillor Blake, that's what it was called in those days, inviting me to their branch meeting at the Rising Sun pub in Billericay. The Deputy Chairman was Luke Mackenzie. I went along, and he was there with two girls, Holly and Emma, and they constituted the entirety of the Basildon branch of CF. And what can I say? I fell for the guy. We had a few drinks, a few laughs, set the world to rights, and he signed me up then and there as a candidate in the local elections the following May. We have slightly more stringent selection rules nowadays. But he gave me the bug for campaigning, and it's never left me. At the risk of making an oddly self-serving observation, Luke was a great talent spotter. He had a romantic belief in politics as a vehicle by which people could affect change for the better and serve their communities. And he believed strongly in recruiting and nurturing young people coming into politics. Well, youngish. He was actually 4 years younger than me. He was already a councillor by then. He was elected when he was 21, 22, I think. And he mentored me through my early forays into politics. As Councillor Blake's alluded, he was a devout Thatcherite, and I remember he said something to me at that first meeting, and the words have been burned into my mind ever since. I do a halfway passable Mackenzie impression, and this is the phrase I always use to jump into it. The people of Basildon are the most entrepreneurial people in Essex. and as you all know, I'm an appalling cynic, and it was a phrase so trite I almost laughed out loud. But Luke soon humbled me with the sheer earnestness of his belief. He meant those words with every fibre of his being. Luke was a born and bred Basildon boy, and nobody had more faith in the inherent good sense and capacity for hard work of the people of this borough, or in their ability to succeed and to thrive. For him, believe in Basildon wasn't just a slogan, it was a mantra that ran through him like a stick of rock. Luke and I were friends for nearly 14 years. And in those early days, he was incredibly generous. He took me to things, he introduced me to people, he showed me the ropes. We went to party conference together every year for several years. Luke had been going for ages, and prided himself on never once setting foot in the main auditorium to hear any of the set-piece speeches. He always left before the PM speech. He wasn't interested in that stuff. He only attended the fringe events where the battle of ideas was taking place and where he knew he'd get fed. Luke planned conference like an SAS military operation. He booked super early, generally a year in advance, so he could stay in a really nice hotel because he treated attending conference as his main holiday. And he'd have the whole thing plotted out so that he never had to buy any food. He worked in the office of Stephen Metcalfe MP and often used to snaffle invites to dinners that Steve wasn't attending or never knew he'd been invited to. I remember one occasion when he said, "Come on, we've got to get to the Friends of Kyrgyzstan." And I said, "Where the heck is Kyrgyzstan?" And he replied, "I don't know, but they do a really good buffet." There was one year when his well-laid plans fell through. His accommodation was cancelled at late notice, and we ended up having to make alternative arrangements. When I did a search on my Facebook the other day, I found this post from 2012. "I don't think Luke is adjusting well to staying in a travel lodge. Quote, even McDonald's has free Wi-Fi." Madam Deputy Mayor, Luke and I had many fun times. I've been a councillor for 11 years, and my political career, such as it is, and everything I've been able to do, everyone I've met, all the experiences I've been privileged to have as a consequence of it, I owe almost entirely to Luke. I was delighted when he was elected back onto the council. He was very proud to be our mayor, and I think he was an exemplary holder of that office. And it's incredibly cruel that he has been taken from us so soon, and I shall miss him very much.
Councillor Brookman.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's true to say that Luke and myself were not close friends, but as a colleague in this chamber, I always found him to be the most professional. He treated each and every one of us with respect, and if some of you got a little out of hand, not me, but the rest of you, he dealt with it swiftly and professionally. No shouting, just a good old "please will you sit down and behave," Councillor Turner. Last year, I asked Luke to come over to Wickford to open a shop that I'm a partner in. Of course, he accepted, not knowing what kind of business it was. So there I was outside, and he comes bowling along, shine gleaming in the sunshine, and he realises it's a beauty business. He joined in with the opening ceremony. He met Sarah, my partner, and all the other ladies who were there for treatments. He asked questions about various things and was genuinely interested in everything there was to offer for both the ladies and the gentlemen. In fact, it was at a meeting some time after that he asked me how the business was going. I, of course, responded, "It's great, thank you." And knowing that Luke was a very astute young man, I said, "If you would like to come and help raise money for charity, you could always come along for some waxing, the intimate kind." He smiled at me and said, "Maybe one day, Eunice, I'll do that just for you." That actually showed his care inside and what a trooper he really was. I do know that he had many interests that will be missed by his family, friends and members of this chamber. It can truly be said about him that having risen to eminence by merit, he lived respected and died regretted. God bless you, Luke.
Thank you. Councillor Yakub.
Luke was indeed a remarkable individual, and his tenure as mayor was a testament to his dedication and passion for our borough. In the wake of his illness and subsequent passing, there's a sense of loss that weighs heavy on our hearts. Losing someone so young and so full of promise is never easy. Luke's character shone brightly through his kindness and generosity. While I may not have been close to him, his impact on our community was undeniable, and his integrity and empathy were evident in his professional interactions. Luke, you will be deeply missed, and your memory will forever be cherished.
Councillor Ademuya.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Luke is such a lovely person, and I met. So what's the? Yeah, I met him when. Well, I joined the party, and I had the privilege of serving on the scrutiny committee as his vice chair, and he was very efficient at everything he did. He would draw me in, call me beforehand, just make me feel valued as his deputy. The other thing, in terms of his efficiency, I watched him when he was being interviewed for his role as county councillor, and he was so good at storytelling that I had to call him afterwards, like, could you teach me how to tell stories like he did? And then another thing about him is that I just see him as a very quiet influence, as most people have said. I spoke to Luke when we had this conversation around his role as the mayor, and I said, you know, why are you really into it? And he told me that he just liked being with people, and that really was a testament to how he played that role. But what strikes me the most about Luke is his ambition. Even though he's gone at a very early age, he lived his life to the full. He, in terms of his profession, his professional life at the London Assembly, as a local councillor, as a county councillor, as twice over mayor. And that's really, like Craig mentioned earlier, that there are lessons we can look at him and just learn lessons. And that's a lesson I'd like to take away. We don't know, each person's life is on a different time schedule. And yes, I would just remember Luke when I think about living my life to the full. Thank you.
Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's been really lovely to hear the comments from everyone in the chamber this evening. In fact, I've learnt quite a bit about Luke that I never knew, and it's great to know that there was a side to Luke that was quite fun. The side that I knew of Luke was always on a professional level, although I do remember Luke when he first got elected. He was very young and he enjoyed it all. And when he came in for the second time and he wanted to become the mayor, I thought, oh, that's rather strange. But I will, because Luke didn't appear to be a councillor that wanted to be a mayor. But I've got to say, since his role as the mayor him and I attended so many functions together because that's the role of the community portfolio, that we met up together. He must be the coolest mayor that that Basildon has ever had. I've never known any one person that was so unassuming, so absolutely patient, so willing to speak to people, children, adults alike, just to get to know who they were, and to think that here is a man, you know, with a smile that could break your heart. So the ladies that were mentioned, there was certainly something there, Luke, that you had that really touched, you know, that really touched them ladies. It's such a pleasure to get, you know, to get to know someone of that ilk that became a person that you didn't really expect to be such a fantastic mayor, which he really was. As I say, so unassuming. And I really feel that when you get to my age, you think to yourself, when someone dies that young, it's just so unfair. But bless you, Luke, I'll never forget you.
Thank you all for your tributes to Luke. I'm sure with all our tributes, we've done his memory justice, and may his memories, good memories, live on in all our hearts. Now, it is very unfortunate that Paul Gardner was also passed away this week. He was a council officer. And I move to some further sad news that Paul Gardner, a cleaning operative who cleansing operative who worked in the depot for 24 years, passed away on Monday of this week after battling with a long illness. Our thoughts go out to the family and those who worked with Paul. Can we please stand for a 1 minute silence? May his soul rest in peace. Do we have any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. For my colleague, Councillor Val Robbins, who's not well.
Councillor Joseph?
Thank you. Apologies from Councillor Kirkman and Councillor Brown.
I believe that's it. Thank you. Are there any declarations of interest to be made by members? Councillor?
Just the usual one with county members.
I believe that's applies to all county members. I think we have something documented somewhere to cover that. Thank you. Okay. Minutes of last meeting. Do I have your agreement that the minutes of the council meeting held on 22nd of February 2024 are a true and correct record? Okay, thank you. There are no announcements to be taken tonight. Public question time. Public question time. There have been no questions received from members of the public. Before I move on to member question time, I'd like to advise that on the 1st of April, will mark 50 years since the council and many other districts and boroughs were established. That's on the 1st of April. Okay. There have been 5 questions submitted by members of the council. 1 supplementary question is permitted. If the time limit is reached, then the member who has submitted the question will receive a response in writing. Question number 1 is from Councillor Alan Davis to Councillor Jeff Henry, Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing, Leisure, Arts and Culture. Councillor Alan Davis.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The question is, what form of consultation has been taken place with the 3 bowling clubs that are under danger of being closed down by the administration?
Wrong side. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Davis, for your question. The Council held face-to-face meetings with representatives from all elected committees of the 3 clubs who subsequently engaged with their membership. We have discussed with them the proposals, and we've since met with them, with officers in the boardroom and myself. Thank you.
Councillor Alan Davis, do you have a supplementary question?
Yes, Deputy Mayor. If these proposals are to go ahead, I'm sure, like me, that you are keen to see local facilities in the communities close to home for easy access, just like the bowling club in Whitmore Way, which fortunately I was able to visit prior to the COVID pandemic. My question is, might I ask that you reflect and reconsider this decision and thereby ensure that sport facilities like these are embedded in the community for the community?
Thank you for your supplementary question. I don't disagree with anything you've said. These things are absolutely vitally important, so is running a well-balanced, financed council. We've met with them, I've met with them, I've spoken to them several times on the phone. The measures by which we count a community organisation as success are the very things that groups like these strive to deliver for their memberships. There are 3 different clubs across 2 sites, 2 very different stories being told in both of those sites, with solutions and officers working very hard to find solutions going forward. Carreras, I understand, has already taken the decision to do something else, and are very happy with that. We met with members from Carreras, we met with members from Riverview, we met with members from Pitsea Bowls Club. They're charming, engaging, delightful people to meet, and all of us left the room with what we wanted. So we are working very hard for a solution where people are controlling their own future, and it doesn't fall on the hands of a council to do so. So thank you for your questions.
Thank you. Moving on to the next question from Councillor Karen Neeson to Councillor Andrew Schrader, Cabinet Member for Housing and Estate Renewal.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Can the Cabinet Member please tell me why the residents on Knights Estate haven't been involved in the decisions regarding their homes?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and I thank Councillor Cara Neeson for her question. I also take this opportunity to thank her for the kind message of condolence she sent to Conservative councillors following the announcement of our colleague's passing, and for being the only opposition councillor to attend the Mayor's charity dinner. It was appreciated by me and I'm sure many of us enormously. In respect of the Knights estate, she'll be aware there was widespread press coverage last year around difficulties arising from the historic use of a building material called RAC, or reinforced autoclave aerated concrete, which was widely used between the 1950s and 90s. Unfortunately, like many of the brilliant innovations of that period, it hasn't stood the test of time, and buildings constructed using RAC now face serious structural problems. Although we're reasonably confident most of our housing stock doesn't contain RAC, we were aware the Knights estate employed Ciparex, which is a very similar material. Having now completed the more intrusive surveys, we've confirmed these properties also contain RAC. There's still some survey works to be undertaken, but I took a recommendation to Cabinet last night to decant the Knights estate and in due course demolish and rebuild the entire estate. Now that decision has been made, officers will be contacting every resident to begin the decant process, and a further options paper will be brought to Cabinet to discuss the future of the estate. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Cara Neeson, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you for your kind words, Councillor Strader. I do appreciate the fact that there are problems with this estate, but it just feels that the press very sort of recently, most recently, have actually got hold of what was going on there, and they've actually been doorstepping the residents. And so I was getting messages from our residents saying, well, what's going on? I think they were very concerned that everything was done behind closed doors and they weren't told what was going to happen, even to the point that there were issues and that decisions needed to be made behind closed doors as to what was going to be the outcome. I really hope that you keep them more informed in the future, because I know they would deeply appreciate that.
There wasn't a second question in there, but I'll just add to what I said before by saying that, I mean, obviously, the press knocking on their doors was not particularly helpful, but the officers were in direct communication with all the residents, because obviously we had to gain access to the properties in order to undertake the surveys. So they obviously were aware that was happening. We're still awaiting some survey results, as I say, but there are issues of confidentiality around individual properties, which is why this has been dealt with at Cabinet in Part 2. Officers have been in contact with each resident, as I say, about their property, and further one-on-one communication will take place. Councillor Cara Neeson will, I feel sure, appreciate that for me, the primary consideration is the safety of residents. The issues with RAC are well documented, and given the risk of sudden failure, my priority was to get the necessary steps in place to get the residents out. We've already decanted 2 properties that had an identified risk. Other properties have been deemed safe for now, but I don't want to take a chance, hence my recommendation to Cabinet to authorise a full decant. It's obvious to me this estate is at the end of its useful life and we should look to redevelop. Investing in the current buildings would be expensive and wouldn't, in my judgment, represent value for money. Fundamentally, discovery of RAC makes it a safety issue above all else. Now that Cabinet has approved residents being moved out and the estate demolished, as I say, every resident will be contacted to begin that process. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Question number 3, from again from Councillor Cara Neeson to Councillor Kevin Blake, Cabinet Member for Environmental Carbon Reduction and Waste Enforcement.
Thank you. Could residents in sheltered housing who are complaining that the current single tins plastics bins are difficult to use be provided with the same type of blue bins they have for paper and cardboard instead, as it would make it easier for them to actually put their recycling away without having to stand in the rain and the cold, popping one item in at a time?
Yeah, thank you for that. Our recycling officers have been working with colleagues in sheltered housing and have been visiting each scheme to see what individual elements can be made to each of them. We will continue to do so and will make reasonable adjustments where possible to make sure that all residents in our sheltered housing accommodation across the borough will have the full use of our recycling service available. I would encourage residents to contact the Recycling Centre team to see what support adjustments can be provided.
Councillor Neeson, do you have a supplementary?
Yes, excuse me, Councillor. Yes, could we be made, or rather given guarantees that individual tenants or the sheltered scheme coordinators won't be opening the bins as they are currently, thus destroying any reason for having the recycling bin in the first place, as people are putting all sorts of waste into them?
That I can guarantee anything of the sort as you expect that. But all I can say is, so thank you for the questions and the concerns that you've raised for those people in sheltered housing. But I reiterate again that we will be working extremely hard with those residents on an individual basis if necessary. That's why I'm happy for them to contact the officers. And if they wish to contact me, I'm also more than happy to take that because I'm going to be around for a long while in this cabinet position. Thank you.
Okay. Question number 4, coming from Councillor Mariam Yacoub to Councillor Baggott, Leader of the Council.
Given the significant concerns raised by residents on the project, what steps is the relevant Cabinet member taking to stop the proposed incinerator in Pitsea?
I'd like to thank Councillor Yacoub for a question. There's a bit of a backstory to this, so I want to make sure we're thorough in the response that she gets. Because this didn't manifest overnight, and in fact, I think it was a couple of years ago where Councillor Rimmer, who is always attuned to what's going on in his ward, together with the late Councillor Mackenzie, brought it to our attention that this was a proposal, and at that time they wrote both direct to the private company, because it's a private company that's actually building it, expressing their objections and reason why, and they also wrote to Essex County Council, who are the planning authority for this, expressing what their objections were. And of course, planning takes a time, and only recently there was a planning meeting to discuss and debate this proposal at Essex County Council. Now, Councillor Rimmer turned up to actually talk about it, and I thank him for that. The late Councillor Mackenzie turned up to actually object to it. I thank him for that. Councillor Smith turned up to actually speak against it. I thank him for that. Councillor Yacoub didn't turn up. In fact, I don't recall anybody from the Labour group speaking in objection to it. Oh, yeah, but Councillor McGurran isn't a district councillor. So nobody in the Labour group representing this borough actually spoke against it. So I'm not too sure whether this is because Councillor Yacoub came to the party late, or she wasn't aware of what's going on, or she was just out of the loop. But it seems weird that she's now asking a question about what we're doing when she had an opportunity to join us in speaking against it and didn't choose to do so. So in answer to the question of what we are doing, we raised our objections then through the proper planning process. The meeting was adjourned, and they are going to be reconsidering it, and we will continue to renew our objections. But it has to be recognised that this is a private company making an application to the correct planning authority, which is Essex County Council, and Essex County Council have the same level of due diligence and legal requirements to consider these matters appropriately, at the risk of then having it overturned on appeal. And we have to trust Essex County Council in that regard to do the right thing, and it would be wrong for us to try and influence or gerrymander a planning committee in its legal processes of making a decision.
Thank you. Councillor Yakub, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you. I mean, I didn't know that asking a question at full council required me to go to previous meetings regarding it. I mean, that's a revelation right there. What I'd like to know, Councillor Bagger, is will your colleagues at County Council wait till after the elections to push it through anyway?
Well, I would love to have some sort of Borg-like ability to read people's minds and colleagues' minds, but that would actually imply a level of duplicity on behalf of my colleagues at Essex County Council. And my understanding is that they are, as we are, people of integrity, people of great intellect and also moral standing, and I would expect them to do the right thing. Now, the timing of the planning committee, as far as I understand it, is nothing to do with the elections. It's to do with the planning cycle. It's to do with the work that was required by the officers of Essex County Council to come back with a report. I believe there was quite a lengthy debate by the committee itself with regard to some of the issues that they felt were of concern. I know there was a talk of wanting to go and visit what the stack height was and actually go and do a site visit to see how the stacks actually looked from different things. I don't know how long this planning process takes because they are doing exactly the thing we would expect them to do, and they are digging deep. They're asking the right questions so they can arrive at a proper and legal decision in the planning process. So, no, I can't give any guarantees as to what they're going to do, but I am gratified and I am, as far as I'm concerned, satisfied that they will do the legal, appropriate thing, acting with integrity.
Thank you. Question number 5 and the last question for this evening from Councillor Patricia Reid to Councillor Jeff Henry, Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing, Leisure, Arts and Culture.
Oh, this is Councillor. Okay, thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Everyone knows that the Community Diagnostic Centre is good news for Pitsea, but could the Cabinet Member please give an oversight of how realistic is it the cost will not escalate again in order to assure residents who are already apprehensive about the cost, as they have already escalated and to date nothing has begun? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid, for your question. As we briefed you before, yourself and Councillor Yakub and my officers only a week ago, we mentioned the placement of a cap on this to prevent any such incidents of prices rising and us footing the bill. So the cap is the answer to your question. Thank you.
Do you have a supplementary question, Councillor Reid?
Thank you. Yes, my question was in before we had the meeting last week. Can we also be assured that the community centre and the Pitsea Library will be opened as soon as possible so that the people of Pitsea and surrounding area can be confident that they will not have to wait years before these facilities are reinstated? Thank you.
I'm not entirely sure that that links necessarily to the first question, but you have our assurance that there are 3 people, the Mid and South Essex Foundation Trust, Basildon Council and its officers, Essex County Council and their officers, working in a triad of development to bring this site forward. And I do hope that all members, no matter what side of the council, listen up. I do hope that all members, no matter what side of the council and what the arrangements are beyond May, are supportive of this and don't do anything to hinder it. We've given a very, very clear commitment to the community centre aspect. Essex County Council's Cabinet Member for Libraries has sat in this very chamber and given the same commitment. We have increased our ask of the site. As you and Councillor Yakub were told, the Council has increased its space requirements and the detail of that requirement to ensure that it can more fully meet the needs of communities now and for the future. The facilities in the common areas have increased to include more toilets, changing places, WC facility and baby change and feeding facilities. And although costs estimates provide assumed cost build, a cap has been placed on that. So I think that answers the overall question. Thank you.
Thank you. There have been no petitions submitted to the council. I will now call on Councillor Bagger, leader of the council, to move the annual report. He has 10 minutes and he doesn't need, you do not need a seconder.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. The annual report, as you can see from the council pack, actually links to the corporate plan. And quite rightfully, the corporate plan states on page 31 that we want Basildon to be home to a healthy and active local communities and to support themselves and each other. And the annual report is packed of examples where we've achieved that under the stewardship of Councillor Henry and also with the Chief Executive and even, you know, yourself, Madam Mayor, who did backside to trackside, for instance. But one of the key defining things to health is being able to diagnose early illnesses. And we've had questions earlier about the CDC. We're aware of the St Galliard Homes project of bringing in a further diagnostic centre right at the centre of Basildon. And of course, this can only be done by people wanting to engage with Basildon as a council. And it's the can-do attitude that this administration has shown, with support of the officers, that have actually now got stakeholders and key organisations wanting to actively engage with Basildon. And that is the theme that comes through this whole yearly report, effectively. Because in the past, there has been a fractious approach to business, a fractious approach to our fellow partners and stakeholders, and a fractious approach to our relationship with Essex County Council. And if you stand tilting at windmills, being fractious to everybody, it shouldn't be a surprise that nobody wants to actually deal with you, nobody wants to work with you, nobody wants to engage with you. It's the engagement that has been very key to a lot of the key projects now that are starting to come to fruition, which will pay dividends tenfold for our residents. Absolutely. A community diagnostic centre that will allow people to get tested and checked for illnesses that actually are fatal long-term to a lot of residents. We've heard time and time again about the health inequalities in this borough, and these CDCs will actually address that in a major way. As a byproduct of that, they will bring additional footfall, not just of our own residents, but from residents around Essex that will be coming, and that actually has a knock-on effect to be able to drive local businesses and support local businesses. It actually drives an interest in Basildon and what Basildon has got to offer, and Pitsea as well, and what Pitsea has got to offer. So it actually has a knock-on effect, therefore, for the economy and linking to prosperity, where we want Basildon to have a thriving, dynamic and diverse economy, where all the communities benefit from increased opportunity and workforce and the right skills for local economy and beyond. I want to say thank you to one of our officers, Jim Sims, who's worked incredibly hard, both with Billericay and Wickford on the business investment districts, and also we look forward to hopefully getting engagement from Basildon businesses to roll that out further with them. Because at the heart of any community is a thriving economy, and we recognise that. And we've always recognised that. Back in the day when we had a committee system, we actually had businesses sitting on our committees because we recognised that businesses understand business, politicians don't necessarily do that. In the previous administration, the first thing they did was kick the businesses off because they don't understand business, they don't want to engage with business. They like to go out through the pandemic and tell businesses they should close, but they don't actually want to support businesses when they're getting on with what they do best. And we, as an administration, believe that the people in the jobs know better than big government and even little government. In the place part of the corporate plan, it says we want Basildon to offer a high quality of life for all residents through attractive, livable, accessible and safe neighbourhoods and towns, along with provision for enduring facilities, green spaces and town centres that meet the needs of the community. And my colleagues, I know, will wax lyrical on this, but I want to thank here at this particular point Councillor Schrader, Councillor Rimmer, Councillor Henry, a triangle of goodness that have actually achieved doing exactly that, actually providing good facilities so that people can play, both in Northland Park in Pitsea, over in Lake Meadows, with the excellent work that Councillor Rimmer has done with regards to bringing economic development to the town centre, and we now can look forward to View Cinemas coming in and actually creating yet another impetus for economic growth and supporting the restaurants around that, and hopefully attracting new restaurants and new nighttime economy to Basildon Centre. Councillor Schrader has been working, slogging through the bureaucracy of trying to get the Safe and Sound project running, given that the convoluted HRA versus general fund issues. And today I spoke with Louise McKinley over at Essex County Council and reiterated to her how important it is that we work with our partners and that we actually get some sort of movement on some of the things that are just the bureaucratic nigglings that stop us actually moving forward, like ownership of land, patchworks of pieces of ownership we don't need, the ongoing debate about who it is that's supposed to cut grass in certain areas and do the weeds, and we really need to be joined up on that. And she has promised me that she's going to contact Councillor Schrader so that we can have a more dynamic conversation going forwards, and she certainly is invested in this borough and the people of this borough. Don't know why, but she is. She's very, very keen to see this go forward and do well. So we have, if you turn to page 36, for those people that are following me, it mentions the Langdon Community Centre, which has been under the stewardship of Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Sargent. This was a promise we made to the people of Langdon. And again, part of this administration's whole remit has been, we will be honest with residents with regard to what we intend to do. If we can't do something, we will tell them. If we say we're going to do something and things change, we will explain why. We made a commitment to that community centre that we would get it rebuilt. We got it rebuilt. We have worked tirelessly with the community centre and the committees there to get fit-for-purpose governance under Councillor Henry's stewardship. We have actually got now where the sort of things they are doing are phenomenal. They have actually well exceeded their remit with regard to the value that they add to that community. And for anybody that hasn't been there, they should pop in. They can have a pint. They will be welcome. They certainly don't eat their children or strangers when you turn up. And you can see a community centre doing exactly what it should do, drawing communities in, where they're actually achieving many, many things together with the activity centre, where older people are able to take part in new skills and socialise. All the things that we would want from a community centre and more. And I'd like to thank publicly on record that I think that the committee at the Langdon Community Centre have well exceeded their remit. On page 38, and again we talk about activities and leisure, Councillor Rimmer, way back, when we had the bear trap in the budget of the Billericay swimming pool, we said that we shouldn't just be putting money into one swimming pool in one part of the borough. We should be exploring what the options were for swimming across the borough. And Councillor Rimmer quite rightfully leapt in and said, well, what about Pitsea? How about getting that done? And we have worked and worked and worked. And this year we opened the Eversley swimming pool, which is absolutely fantastic. And again, a testament to doing what you say when you promise the electorate something. We have conducted the play review, which under Councillor Henry has brought huge amounts of investment into the borough. £55,000 Spire Road, £40,000 to Scarlets, £46,000 to Pendle Drive, £43,000 to Lil Dodden, and I could go on and on and on. But the key thing is, these are investments equally across the borough, being fair to the borough, and treating the borough as it should be, 5 towns with one administration, looking at them all equally and fairly. If we then move on to page 42, we can see that when we're talking about crime and disorder, we did Operation Dial, a Home Office pilot to tackle antisocial behaviour in Elm Green. And I had the pleasure of accompanying Steve Metcalfe MP and Roger Hurst, the Police Commissioner, with the wardens that had gone down there to actually see the difference that had made. And to see residents walking around, happy and talking about what a difference the area had been in quite a short space of time. We've worked in partnership with Essex Police on Op Mantis, which ran from January to September last year, focusing on serious violence. This operation was responsible for 150 arrests, 55 remanded prisoners, in excess of 500 intelligence reports, and a significant month-on-month reduction in street robberies, seeing a 33% reduction in the year. We have said that we would put our head above the parapet when it comes to dealing with crime, and again, by engaging with the police and the people that do it, showing that we are actually going to do what we say we will do, and actually will take a zero-tolerance approach. We've had buy-in from the police, and I want to thank Dan McHugh, the current Commandant, for the very hard work that he has done and the way he has embraced and supported us in doing that. We've had the community safety wardens, which have been patrolling since June 2022. Over that period of time, we have secured £80,000 worth of savings in the contract. We've also issued 48 verbal warnings, 7 written warnings, 16 fixed penalty notices, 188 antisocial behaviour incidents looked at, 57 drugs and psychoactive substances, etc., etc., etc. I can see I'm running out of time. When you've done so much as administration, 10 minutes just isn't long enough to be able to get the flavour for what it is. But the key message is here that we have consistently this year delivered on every single promise that we made last election. We will continue to do that. We will show the public that if they want integrity, if they want an administration that will do what it says, this is the administration that will do it, and there is the proof. Thank you, Madam Deputy.
Councillor Sharada.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. It's been a busy year, my third in the portfolio, and I've been upsetting the leader recently with valedictory statements, but as colleagues know, my wife and I are expecting our first child in May, so irrespective of anything else that happens in May, I don't anticipate continuing in this post. So I want to take the opportunity to thank the leader for giving me the opportunity to serve on his front bench in this important role. I also want to place on record my thanks to the excellent officers in Housing and Property Services for their hard work, not just this year, but throughout my time as Cabinet Member. Leslie O'Shea, our outgoing Director, has served this council an incredible 37 years, and we enjoyed a good professional relationship. She kept a lot of plates spinning, and I'm indebted to her for her professionalism and support. And I wish her a long and happy retirement. We come under the place theme, and I'm also grateful to Councillor Gascoigne and the Place Scrutiny Committee for their work. Via our housing task force, we've looked at ways to reduce the rising cost of temporary accommodation. We introduced a contribution charge for TA, and currently we're refreshing our allocations policy. Through our new housing strategy, we're redesignating some excess sheltered housing as general needs to meet the growing demand there. We're getting on top of asset management. When I inherited the portfolio, we'd been without a head of property and asset management for some time. We now have one in post and are cracking on with our HRA asset management strategy, including works to retrofit council homes to make them energy efficient and fit for the future. We signed a contract with E.ON to retrofit 400 homes. We also have a building safety delivery plan to ensure our housing complies with the latest regulations. We've done a huge amount of work with Morgan Sindall around repairs and planned works, particularly on damp and mould. I'm aware repairs has been and continues to be a major preoccupation of the Place Scrutiny Committee and indeed all members. We revised the governance around our partnership and implemented a thorough review of the contract. That's meant being quite robust with Morgan Sindall, but I've always found I'm pushing against an open door when it comes to improving service delivery. There's still work to do, particularly around communication with tenants, but I am satisfied I leave the service far better than I found it. I've endeavoured during my tenure to be a regular attendee of the Homelessness Forum, and I'm in awe of the services that work with homeless in Basildon, particularly our dedicated outreach workers. I regard the Nevenden Place homeless facility as a proud achievement, and it's a fantastic facility. The single biggest project we took on has been Safe and Sound. I self-consciously set wildly ambitious aspirations for that, and I shan't withhold from colleagues my frustration at the glacial slowness with which things progress. But I'm proud of the work officers have completed so far. I think over many years, long before most of us, officers and administrations of all colours kicked cans down the road, allowed problems on our estates to build up, and I simply urge we carry on and see this through. Lots of bumps along the way, and there'll be more. But we must keep this up. And we must keep up the investment and keep teasing out problems and finding solutions. We have the estate improvement plan for Felmores. The pilot for replacement bin stores is complete, and officers are analysing that. We're engaging with the community and putting together EIPs for Lee Chapel North and Five Links. Happy to report we secured funding from County for a cycle store pilot in Lee Chapel North. Our dedicated mechanical sweeper is hard at work on the estates, and Trust Links are working alongside residents to create community planting projects. We've also put in new CCTV. We've delivered new council houses and currently have 71 under construction and planning permission in place for a further 49, with another 40 pending approval, but need many more. It's a challenging time to build anything, as we all know. Sempra has challenges too, and a number of schemes are paused due to viability. But we recently submitted a business case for Government and Homes England funding to get proposed schemes underway, including former Car Park 14. I'm happy to say that in honour of the King's coronation last year, I secured permission from the Lord Chamberlain's office, no mean feat, that when the development is complete, roads on the new estate may take their names from items of coronation regalia and be allowed, by His Majesty's gracious permission, to call itself the Coronation Estate. And that's all she wrote, Madam Deputy Mayor. Many thanks. My best wishes to my successor, whomever that may be, and I wish everyone standing for election in May, including myself, the very best of luck.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I'd also like to thank some departing officers in Tom Ash and Caroline, who've been fantastic in the 2 years that I've been in post as Cabinet Member, and in how they've actually supported with a number of key projects, and actually the amount of time, effort and passion that they actually put into the role to actually get things across the line, whether it would be the Pitsea swimming pool, which something I've been champing on about since 2018, and it was fantastic to be there opening that swimming pool with my colleague, Councillor Jeff Henry, and with our local MP, Stephen Metcalfe, or whether it be getting a new operator for the View Cinema, I'm going to call it now, which was secured. And this council actually voted on, by the way, thanks to a Labour motion asking us to hurry up and get on with getting a new operator for the cinema, or whether it would be in terms of getting a new location for Wickford Market and getting that resurfaced and ready to be used. So I thank them for that. But really, what we've been able to achieve this year is quite exciting. We've already heard about the Clinical Diagnosis Centre, and we've heard about Galloyard Homes in terms of the health centre there. But there's also the ambulance hub, which officers have been working on as well. It's going to improve response times, and that we got the agreement, the development agreement, agreed in December, and that we've actually commissioned the architect, and that's in a position to go ahead, is brilliant as well. We've got public realm works in Leindon that are due to go ahead as well at the Leindon Library, which will be good for people in Leindon. We've done a high-level capacity review of Pitsea as a whole to see, once we've got the CDC in place, where do we go next? How do we utilise this new facility in terms of the footfall we're going to get? And we started, my colleague Peter Holloman, Councillor Holloman, was fantastic in having a scrutiny meeting in Wickford that both myself and Councillor Headley went along to, and County Councillor Tony Ball, and there were people from Wickford Town Council and members of the public, and they were talking about Wickford regeneration and what can be done in Wickford, and I thought that was really excellent way to get bottom up. And sorry, and Councillor Eunice Brockman was there too. Apologies. I don't know. You should be on top of my mind. Apologies. In that essence, it was really good to get some bottom-up ideas in terms of what could be done in Wickford in terms of place and in terms of regenerating Wickford. But what we've been able to do is we've created a Basildon Borough Growth Vision, and we've looked at a Basildon Town Centre delivery programme to actually start creating a new dynamism. To the extent that we even got featured in The Sun just last week as in their tourism section. So I've done something in the tourism title, at least, in the travel section of a place to visit, because we could be the next Berlin in terms of some of the things that we're actually putting in place in terms of creative tech and trying to create a creative tech town with over £4.5 million coming from the Arts Council, thanks to a lot of hard work from our officers in creating that aspect to the East Square, thanks to the investment in the town gate, thanks to the Galliard Homes development, thanks to the cinema. You know, we're revitalising Basildon, and it's going to be a place to be. I'm proud to be part of an administration that's actually doing things, and the comment I get from colleagues is they're living in all parts of the country with all colours of administration in charge of their councils, and they're saying, our administration's closing the swimming pool, closing the cinema. What are you doing different in Basildon that you're opening cinemas and opening swimming pools? Thank you.
Councillor Sargent.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Mayor. The community's portfolio has had a very rewarding year this year, and most of that is down to the hard work as officers, and considering that a couple of them are leaving the organisation, I want to pay my heartfelt thanks to Leslie O'Shea and Paul Brace. It's been absolutely wonderful working with them and having the achievements that we have. And I'd also like to mention Tom Conniff, who has been responsible for lots of our consultation and engagement, who left the organisation a few weeks ago. I really enjoyed working with him and the council reaping the benefits of his labour. Anyhow, this year we continue with our grants to organisations, with continued support to our community groups, our service level agreements to the CAB, the CVS, Community Transport, Basildon Twinning, and yourself, Madam Mayor, side by side, which allows your organisations to deliver vital services to residents over the borough. The community supermarket has expanded to 2 sites with a record increase in customers, while food banks over the borough support many families. The partnership agreement with ECC Youth Services provides a much-needed detached team that allows them to get into the heart of those communities, seeking out vulnerable young people where it's needed most and providing opportunities to enhance their lives. This year's Volunteer Awards in February recognise the fantastic volunteering that goes on in the borough. It was a lovely evening seeing the winners reap the rewards of their labour. The coronation of King Charles last year saw many communities participate in the big help out call for volunteering. I personally took part in a litter pick within my parish, along with the Mayor, Luke Mackenzie, who gave out medals to participants. We were delighted Luke could join us, but also Councillor Tony Ball, Councillor Stuart Allen, and our own Paul Brace. The Holiday Activity Fund, the HAF programme, continues supported by Active Essex, creating spaces over the school holidays for young people. It's a pleasure to join them to see the benefits the programme brings, and it ensures that they've got activities and food throughout the school holidays. Activity centres are thriving, and soon Pitsea Activity Centre will be moving to a host venue while the place is demolished, to be replaced by a brand new community centre that will be shared with the NHS Community Diagnostic Centre as a combined centre with a library. What a partnership, and how lucky we are to be the beneficiaries here in Basildon. Inclusion and diversity is part of the annual calendar, celebrating so many events that are delivered over the course of the year to a significant number of attendees from many diverse communities. Our events calendar is shared with members to enable them to attend all the events on offer. As a council, we must pride ourselves on the way in which inclusion and diversity has grown and become very successful over the past few years. I applaud the work of the cost of living team, who work extremely hard getting help to those in need in a dignified manner and alleviating the anxieties those families suffer. I took a report to Cabinet last night and agreed to a policy to work closer with our town and parish councils. I admit they are not everyone's cup of tea, as my colleagues pointed out at the meeting. But I take that because they're absolutely right. But over the coming year, we will see what develops. I was asked by Councillor Yaqub if the outcomes were going to be monitored. This did take me by surprise, because every quarter these reports of portfolio holders are taken to scrutiny, giving those members the opportunity to ask those awkward, challenging questions, the same as I did last night. As the annual report states, it sets out the performance of the council against the corporate plan, to which I very much support. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Before I start, I'd just like to place on record my thanks to Richard Larkman, officer with whom I've worked for many years on compiling the budgets, and who has given me a lot of invaluable assistance over that time, and will be leaving the authority. A minute ago, the leader outlined the salient points in this report, and of course resources in one way or another touches everything. So I won't be going through everything in the whole report about it, but I would just like to give a bit more additional detail and practical examples with regards to those items that are specific to the resources portfolio. The leader also mentioned the Langdon Community Centre, which over 3 years we invested £3.8 million in that facility, despite the budget pressures that this council has faced over the last few years due to external factors. And it shows that during that, and despite those pressures, this is testimony to the fact that we have been able to maintain the large capital projects that we have initiated, and which my colleagues have all mentioned, quite a few of them in fact. On page 68 it mentions about the commercial programme. The main focus of that initiative was the rollout of robust contract management arrangements, which included reviews of the services provided by ID Verdi and Morgan Sindall. And there have in fact been positive financial outcomes of this work, which included saving £22,000 on the Civica Revs and Benz contract, and £125,000 saving on the Allpay contract. And this whole process has been assisted quite considerably by having a cabinet member dedicated to review and procurement, and that is of course Councillor Headley. On page 68, of course, it also mentions the MTFS, the Medium-Term Financial Strategy. This administration obviously set out a balanced budget in February that, despite those budget pressures that I've just mentioned, demonstrated the council is in robust financial health and will be so for the foreseeable future. On page 70, it mentions about performance indicators, It does show an increase in exceptional hardship payments, which is obviously not good news, but it demonstrates that the council's committed to assisting, where possible, people in extreme financial difficulty. This is not a statutory service, but nevertheless it's something that we undertake. It's a facet of a solvent council, and that is a thread that is running all the way through this whole report. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. One of the disadvantages of speaking late is that everybody's already mentioned so much of what I was actually going to say. So I just want to draw out a couple of points that I'm particularly proud of without taking 35 people hostage for any longer than is absolutely necessary. Items that I wanted to note were things like our work with Trustlinks and the opening of the Vange site. Also, Councillor Reid is working very hard over in Northlands Park, a park we've put considerable investment into to promote not only a safer environment, but one which that's actually really well used for a multitude of reasons. Not only a new skate park, but a new playground as well. Also a very interesting chess set. The strangest looking boat I think I've ever seen that's planted with palm trees and all sorts of things. And so many community groups organising all of the time, different levels of activities from quite minority ethnic backgrounds in our borough, really engaging with officers, really engaging with ATF, with Sports of Confidence, and Active Basildon. And it was a pleasure to welcome Chris Boardman from Sports England earlier this year, who then went on with Chief Executive to join other businesses in the borough to promote Active Basildon and the strategies that could be brought from that. I think I consider myself one of the luckiest people in the world to have the officers that I've got on this council. They are just mindful of information and let's have a go. That's what they do. That's how they do it all the time. They've gone off and they've had little stories, little conversations with different people and got us signed up to all sorts of things just to try them out, to really improve the life and outcomes for our residents. We've got a young lad called Tom Oliver who was doing a cycling aspect, and I just see him everywhere I go. He's either out in pedal power giving away free bicycles, or he's stuck over at Ballard's Walk Shop Parade on a Saturday morning doing consultations with a variety of people for the scheme that Councillor Schrader mentioned earlier today. And while it might seem a little innocuous that we just give away 214 bicycles, that's to 214 residents, and that's 214 stories. I had the pleasure of joining him about 8:30 Saturday morning outside the back of Basildon Hospital, where we were giving them away to members of staff at the hospital coming off shift. And myself and Paul Brace, Fiona Ryan, the managing director of Basildon Hospital, were all there. And I asked the member of staff who was picking this bike up, what difference does this bike mean to you? Bearing in mind that we give away bicycles, helmets, lights, everything that you need to use the bike and be safe. And the difference that she explained to me was that actually what it now meant is that she could actually put her child back in dancing lessons, which she'd had to cut 2 years ago, but now not having to fork out for a bus. Having this bike basically enabled her to realise her child's dream, and it was a major thing for me. I actually thought that was incredible. Over 45,000 instances of communities participating in various different Find Your Active sporting and relating initiatives, including park play, street tag, dance on prescription and much more. We talked about the accessible cycling. We also launched the Langdon's Wellness Cafe on the 11th of January at the Langdon Methodist Church, and the cafe will be run by local organisations, ATF, in collaboration with health services, council services, including the advice store, and resident involvement. Basildon Activity Awards, we celebrated that back in November, and myself and the Mayor attended and presented awards, and it was lovely. It was genuinely lovely to have 38 people from the borough, just regular, ordinary people who are trying their best with lived experience and skin in the game, to just do something to improve their lot. So it was great to be able to join the Mayor for the second year running in doing that. Councillor Rimmer and the leader have both mentioned the Eversley Leisure Centre, which has had 15,000 people since we've opened the doors swimming, with 2,888 swimming lessons. There's a lot more. 13 play areas delivered last year, 10 promised for this year. Redesignation of public spaces, reclassification of Langdon's Victoria Park to now being a town park. And one of the things that I'm the most proud of is our officers working with the National Gallery to bring a national treasure to what is a junk shop in the top of the town. So I could go on. You're telling me I'm not allowed to, so I'm going to sit myself down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Moore.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Taking Councillor Henry's point about others covering items in his portfolio, surprisingly no one has mentioned the local plan. As you can see from enclosure 2 of the annual report, the portfolio for strategic planning, infrastructure and planning enforcement outlines the issues and options regulation 18 stage, which is the first step to preparing a new local plan, and addresses the long-term vision and objectives of the new local plan before a spatial strategy is finished and detailed policies written. A comprehensive 10-week programme of consultation on the issues and options took place last year, from June the 27th through to September the 5th. All the responses to the consultation have been considered and will be used to help inform the next stage of the local plan, known as the draft local plan. The schedule of Regulation 18 comments was discussed at the Cabinet meeting last night and summarised in over 300 pages, I have to say, the comments received from members of the public, developers and statutory consultees. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all those people and organisations who took the trouble to engage with the consultation and provided their comments to us. As members know, the results from the consultation were presented to an all-member briefing held on January the 25th. The statement of consultation was reviewed in some detail by the Prosperity Scrutiny Committee on February the 1st. All the responses have been considered and will be used to help inform the next stage of the local plan. Planning policy officers continue with the ongoing duty to cooperate and technical evidence liaison with Essex County Council and other statutory authorities for the local plan. Madam Deputy Mayor, we continue to push forward with the development of the draft local plan, and we have explored the local development scheme timescales further, and consequently we have made significant changes to the local development scheme. Our Regulation 18 draft local plan will be prepared this year with consultation targeted for this coming winter. Regulation 19 publication of the local plan, including consultation, will be spring next year. This will be followed by the submission of the local plan to the Secretary of State by next summer, I should say summer 2025. Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Yakub.
Thank you, Deputy Madam Mayor. The Leader of the Council spoke for a total of 10 minutes and did not mention once the biggest change to people's lives in the last year: the bins. You can try to run away from it now, but in 6 weeks' time, you're getting the sack. The annual report before us is an excellent attempt at cheap pre-election publicity and political posturing. It's almost comical how they paint our business as usual services and key performance indicators as triumphs. But let's be honest, we've seen this charade one too many times. We have a cabinet of phonies pretending to know what they're doing as they run the borough into the ground. Let's go through what Basildon has had to put up with for the last 3 years. Councillor Baggott, Cabinet Member for Disorder and Crime-Infested Communities. Councillor Blake, Cabinet Member for Trashy Streets and Dumped Bin Bags. Councillor Sullivan.
What's your point of order, Councillor Rimmer?
I think it's lack of parliamentary language, isn't it, to be calling people liars or phonies and questioning their integrity.
What's your point of order?
Yeah, impugning members.
Councillor Rimmer, you need to indicate which rules have been broken.
Well, I think the officer knows which number it is because it's in text.
Okay, sorry, it's not allowed. Councillor Yaqub, can you continue?
Thank you. Councillor Baggott, Cabinet Member for Disorder and Crime-Infested Communities. Councillor Blake, Cabinet Member for Trashy Streets and Dumped Bin Bags. Councillor Sullivan, Cabinet Member for Resource Depletion and Commercial Setbacks. Councillor Headley, Cabinet Member for Business Apathy and Procurement Failures. Councillor Sargent, Cabinet Member for Alienating Communities. Councillor Moore, Cabinet Member for Planning Appeals and Threats of Government Intervention. Councillor Schrader, Cabinet Member for Mouldy Housing and Dilapidated Estates. And Councillor Rimmer, Cabinet Member for a Bust Cinema and Potential Council Bankruptcy. This is your legacy.
I thought I was on your Christmas card list.
The Baggott boys that caught...
Jeff's all right.
Order. Thank you very much. Sorry, Councillor, is he next?
Councillor Harrison.
Councillor Harrison. And
No.
oh, she's not finished. Oh, sorry.
Has Jeff got a point of order? No. Oh, all right.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, carry on.
Councillor Yaqub.
Perfect. Okay. Cool. This is your legacy. The Baggott boys that called grass cutting levelling up, called opening up an ice cream shop regeneration, and thought money management lessons would solve the cost of living crisis. Take a moment and look around our borough. What do you see? Hundreds of black sacks strewn across our streets, piled high like a monument to the failures of this administration. This, members, is the true annual report of our borough. Sacks of bins and rat-infested filth. Missed collections are the norm. Additional bins are denied. Recycling bags are more likely to end up spilled on our streets than actually get recycled. And if you're holding out for the new recycling bags, don't hold your breath. Councillor Blake's promises are as empty as the budget he has to fulfil them. He squandered £600,000 on the wrong bags and will now say anything just to save face. The truth is glaring. The Conservatives are burning taxpayer money on vanity projects that will lead us to bankruptcy, pushing through last-minute deals to grant £3 million of taxpayer cash to a cinema chain that will give the council the same runaround that Councillor Rimmer now confesses Empire gave him. When Councillor Baggott justifies raising council tax by insisting there's no magic money tree, I have to wonder, where did this newfound abundance sprout from for View Cinemas? And that's not all. They're handing out £1.7 million in golden handshakes to senior officers
Point of order.
whilst telling the public
Sorry,
there's
what's your point of order, Councillor Rimmer?
23A.
23A?
Can you elaborate?
Can you explain how it's being broken?
Now imputing the motives of officers and, yeah, 23A, I've said it.
Councillor Yakub, can you just be cautious about talking about officers? The caution is disallowed, but be cautious about talking about officers.
That's not all. They're handing out £1.7 million in golden handshakes whilst telling the public there's no money for your weekly bin collections, there's no money to keep your streetlights on, and there's no money to fix your potholes. The future is bleak with the Conservatives, but it doesn't have to be this way. I mean, is this the best that we can hope for? Is this the standard of success that we are willing to settle for? Do we honestly believe that our residents deserve nothing more than managed decline by Craig Rimmer's design? And what about the local plan fiasco, which has cost the public purse a staggering £3 million? Councillor Rimmer stood up, but he didn't mention that his promises to stop the tower blocks going up were nothing but lies.
Sorry, please run up. Thank you.
Your tower blocks.
Thank you. Order, please. Order, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. The clock was stopped. The clock was stopped.
I understand that, but
Yeah.
my time was taken up.
No, it wasn't. The clock was stopped. It was. Can you please sit down, please? Thank you, Councillor.
Oh, I'm going to wrap up.
No.
And what about
Thank
the
you.
local
Thank
plan
you.
fiasco?
Thank you, Councillor Yakub. Thank you. Thank you very much. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I wasn't actually going to speak on this item, but I did notice that Councillor Blake hasn't given his update as a cabinet member yet, so I'm more than happy to step in and do it for him, because the number one legacy of this administration this year will always be the bins. Millions of pounds have been spent this year to make the bins so much worse for residents in this borough. Fortnightly bin collections are leading to mountains of waste on every single estate in the borough. Councillor Blake says it's not true. The very estate that he lives on, I was there the other day, and there was a mountain of bins. So I'm not sure how he can say that that's not true, and it's certainly true in the estates around my area, Lee Chapel North as well. But yeah, the fortnightly bins are causing mountains of waste and fly tipping everywhere. The blue and white sacks, which are not up to standard, not fit for purpose, which Councillor Blake has actually admitted that he agrees with, and has said at a scrutiny meeting that I was at several weeks ago that he's even promising to scrap that. Although since then he has actually gone very quiet about that, and has sort of changed his tune. And as far as I'm aware, the current position is he doesn't actually have a plan on that at all. And so, you know, all of this is, as far as I'm concerned, the reason why, unfortunately, Councillor Blake, you say that you're going to be in your position next year, but due to the failures of waste this year, next year's Labour-led administration will not be keeping you on in your current position.
Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I will continue to show the decorum that this meeting has had until recently, out of respect for the former mayor, and it has been a sombre evening. I do thank the Cabinet for not abusing their right to have announcements, then repeat themselves again with slightly reworded speeches. There are things I could pick holes in about the play area review started by the Alliance, but that's not the night for splitting hairs with. The election's formally called on Monday. You can say what you like here. The public knows what's going on in their estates. But I would like to pick up on a point raised by Councillor Yacoub and Councillor Harrison. Sturrock's, and I address this through the chair, Madam Chairman, to Councillor Blake, 200 black sacks, Christmas decorations. I have a picture on my phone. I did report it and it's still there. When you get up to speak, I hope you can give us a commitment to ensure that it's cleared. I saw a rat there Saturday afternoon and it's not nice. I would like to make another point that has been said tonight, primarily by the leader, about the diagnostic centre. That's a wonderful thing on paper, excuse me. But when people see a doctor, they know there's something not quite right. Yes, it's going to be great, they're going to save time by getting this diagnosis. But what happens when these consultants are consistently moonlighting on working to their own timescale? That is one of the causes of why we're getting such poor health inequality. When I served on the fire authority when it existed, a member that's not here tonight would criticise some firefighters for moonlighting. Why do we never pull up these consultants? My late mother, as many members will be aware here, would still be alive if the scan she had for a routine cancer had the doctor bothered to check and told her it came back. My mother would still be here. So I'm sympathetic and supportive of this diagnostic centre, but as a council, whoever takes control must ensure that when patients are given bad news, that instant action is given and we put as much pressure on these consultants moonlighting, doing private work instead of helping the NHS clear that incredibly long waiting list caused by COVID. I have no issue with doctors moonlighting, but the NHS is their prime employer, and that's where their sole loyalty should be. In the spirit I started this speech tonight, I wish to continue. So I have to give a reason why I and possibly my group, because I don't whip my group, the independents are not whipped, why we would support or not support this agenda item. Now, in the first paragraph, it talks about value for money and stewardship of the council. Members would have seen the email that was sent to me by an outside person who I've never met before about the cinema contract, and he provided me with a Moody's statement, a CAA2 rating, which means extremely speculative. Now, I don't want to have a bum fight tonight about the cinema. The administration has made their position. I've set the position of myself and my group that we will not be supporting this agenda item. Does not mean we disagree with what some members of the Cabinet has said tonight, but that is the position of my group, why we will not be supporting it. I appreciate the Cabinet will be given one-to-one advice from the Chief Executive. When I asked for that before the meeting, I got the middle finger off him and told to speak to him after the Cabinet. And maybe we could have had a different outcome, but I have to work from the information I obtain and research to be able to make an informed decision. I shall leave it there, Madam Chairman, because I've not come here tonight to start a bun fight on this tragic night of council.
Thank you. Councillor Blake.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. First of all, whilst you might not have got the answer you wanted from the Chief Executive, I'm sure he didn't give you the middle finger. I want to make an apology to Councillor Harrison, a sincere apology. I didn't realise I had to ask his permission when I spoke during tonight's meeting. So I do apologise for that. Okay, we'll talk about a couple of things that have been mentioned. 60k it's going to cost for the new bins, bags, apparently, so you say. What about the saving of £4 million a year that we've actually incurred from that? What about that £4 million saving? And a lot of those discussions that we had at the time were all done through a working committee, which your members were fully involved in. Fact. He says, I've changed my mind. I've not changed my mind on that. They weren't fit for purpose. I've said that. I've stuck by that. And I can tell you, even today, I was looking at some samples of new ways of doing it. So, no, I didn't order any wrong bags at all. Don't talk them through. So we are looking at it and we are moving it forward. But we're not going to rush it. We're going to get it right. Do we admit? Don't be. Shall I carry on, or is she going to keep on interrupting like she always does?
Be mindful, stop. We listen. Don't interrupt. Thank you.
I had to tell you last night, I do always treat you with respect when you talk. I expect the same from you. Well, actually, I don't expect the same from you, and that's not let me down. So I haven't changed my mind on that. The piles of bags that we keep on hearing isn't because of the system, it's because people are dumping them. That's the problem there. And we have now got CCTV in some of the areas to make sure that we catch those culprits. There are an awful lot of people there who are doing the right thing. And I accept about the bags. I do accept that. There's no doubt about that. But what I will say is, you had a chance at the last meeting that we had. You had that chance to produce a budget. Because all I see at the moment, give the Tories a sax on your leaflets. Yeah, it's a good headline, actually. I think it's quite a good headline. Credit where credit's due. I've got no problems on that. But you didn't present anything at the meeting about a budget that you was going to produce. And I know you couldn't go there because you had other experience. But none of your members actually put anything forward on that at all. There was only 4 of them there. So how are you going to pay for it? How are you going to pay for that? How are you going to save that £4 million? Be very interesting to find out how you can do that, because you brought nothing to the table. Credit to Councillor Smith, he did bring something to the table, and give him respect where he deserves on that. Didn't agree with it, but none for that, at least it was there. But it's not working, apparently. Okay. Firstly, we've got the fully electric fleet of food waste in the country. Very good news. 35% increase in food recycling since we started this. Our recycling rates for December 2022 were 41%, very poor. This December, it was 58. Waste going to landfill is reduced by 23%. You say it's not working. I think that is working. It will improve, and we will get it right. Absolutely, got no problems on that score. But how can you say from those stats that are there? Sorry.
No interruptions,
Councillor
Yacoub, thank you.
Dear. Respect. And there you go. So it is working. And I'm proud of the team that I've got. The workforce out there that are working hard. What I will say, we do, and again, I'm happy to say this, I've said it in my emails, we're not quite got it right when it comes to miscollections. Something's got to stray there. I accept that as well. But the teething errors, when we had this problems again, when we had to introduce the food waste, everybody was going to not go by it. Everybody wasn't going to apply by it. As I just said to you, 35% increase. The green waste, again, everybody was going to dump them outside the bus centre. They're going to bring their wheelie bins down to the bus centre. They're going to dump them. Well, as I said to you, that is working as well. So, and actually, you'll see that most councils in the country now are charging for the green waste. There was no doubt about that whatsoever. And I think if you look at Thurrock and some other areas, we're 85 for a fortnightly one, not even a weekly. So we're actually not doing bad at all. So it's a good service. It can improve and will improve over time. The difference between us and anybody else, we weren't scared to make those hard decisions. And we will continue to make them next year as well. The public will respond. They do know it's the right thing to do. They do know we've got to tweak it. We accept that. But what I'm telling you, the people out there are responding. The people who are dumping their waste, and I can get reported again to the Standards Board, I really don't care. The people who are dumping the waste, we will come after you and we will get you. Now, please report me to the Standards Board. The last person I said that decided I could do that. Please do it, because I mean that.
Thank you. Councillor Carol Morris.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. This is a report of all that has been done during the previous year. It's a shame that the opposition do not appreciate the things that have been done, but they really aren't going to expect us or anyone else to give them the chance to run the council next year by criticising others when they cannot be bothered to set a budget themselves or tell the populace what they would do should they take control. And I would like to say to Councillor Harrison, sacks don't cause waste, people do. I thank the Cabinet members for their hard work during the last year, in particular the PV solar panels at Wickford Swimming Pool, the play area improvements in Jubilee Drive and Barn Hall Recreation Ground, and the new site for Wickford Market. Thank you very much, Cabinet members.
Councillor Gascoigne.
Thank you very much. Sort of Labour promises sound a little bit too good to be true to me, and I think the particular notion of bankruptcy is fairly rich coming from the Labour group, given the fact they couldn't even come up with their own budget or account for a 5 million, or near 5 million black hole for this weekly collections. But actually, I've recently come to learn that they did originally have a budget, but then in that budget, it became very clear once they liaised with council officers that they couldn't actually afford weekly bin collections like their ludicrous claims they wanted to put in their election literature. So what did they do? Well, half of them didn't turn up, obviously couldn't vote for it, had no plan, and they sacked their leader at the time as well. So that's the kind of work we've got here with the current Labour group. I also find it a tad ironic that we're getting criticism
Madam Deputy
here.
Mayor.
What's your point of order?
(23A).
Explain why.
Sorry?
23A.
Councillor Gascoigne is telling lies about my group.
Okay, sorry.
Caution.
Sorry, can we just, carry on, please? Councillor Gascoigne.
Thank you. I also want to, like I say, a tad ironic with the potholes irony because, well, I regularly explain to residents that it's a county council issue. I wouldn't expect to have to explain that to the local Labour group as well. But anyway, I think the big tragedy, though, here is that we see very clear ignored successes. Obviously, it won't be in their literature, certainly be in ours, such as the Pitsea CDC, such as the swimming pool, again in Pitsea, such as developments for our estate, such as the Langdon Community Centre, which the previous Labour, backed by the Independence administration, would have demolished, which would have been devastating for our
Point
residents.
of order, Madam Deputy Mayor.
What's your point of order?
23A.
And how is that?
He's telling lies. There was a report conducted there was an independent report conducted that clarified that information to be categorically untrue.
Please carry on, Councillor Gascoigne.
Thank you very much. Another win for us recently, also if this utterly uncosted scam nonsense that we're getting from our opponents were to come true, is also that under our administration, recycling has gone up notably. And of course, if you reverse what we've done, it would almost certainly go in the opposite direction. But ultimately, let's face facts. Let's look at what we actually do as a Conservative administration. We make promises that we stick by. We balance our budget. We actually afford to pay for things, and that's why we've been able to do so many developments. Labour, once again, making ludicrous promises for things they can't possibly afford because they just require a magic money tree to do that. And frankly, I think the vast majority of our dearest public will see through this utter charade and vote responsibly and vote for a party who, for example, can actually count, add up, turn up to council with an actual budget and then deliver for its residents. Thank you very much.
Councillor Cannon.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I just thought I'd comment on some of the items that have been brought up by the Labour Party tonight. I think one of them was the cinema complex. I think we need to kind of school the Labour Party on what actually finance is about. We wouldn't actually invest in something if it didn't wash its face and provided a benefit to the people of this borough. If you actually looked at the finances, which I know isn't something you tend to do that often, as you didn't produce your own budget, you would see that it's an asset that actually it pays for itself, it finances itself through what it is and what it will provide, and it will actually contribute a six-figure sum to the budget of the council, and that helps pay for services that we provide to the public. This is the public cinema. It's not our cinema. It's the public cinema. It's their money. It's what they've bought. It's what it's going to provide them. It's going to provide. Can you?
Sorry, Councillor.
Yeah. See, this is all Labour. This is all Labour can do. All they can do is interrupt grown-ups when they're trying to talk about serious issues for this borough. And it's just beyond ridiculous, really. Just wear something bright and keep shouting until people take notice of you. Absolutely disgusting. So yeah, we've got an asset there in the community. It pays for itself, and it will contribute towards the services in this borough, which is what we need to do as a responsible council, providing services. The next thing, they make cheap shots at the financial restructure. Now, it was the right thing to do to not to take part in the restructure, not to leave that to officers, because it's the managing director's restructure, and it's actually going to provide a saving of around about £1 million a year to the council, which again, believe it or not, actually goes into providing services for the public, which is something that Labour failed to understand. And then just lastly, just talking about the favourite subject over there is waste, and they think it's going to win them some votes. But hopefully hopefully again interrupting. Hopefully what we'll see from the public is they'll realise what this actually means. And because the main opposition actually provided a budget, the Independents was the main opposition on budget night, not these people over here. I mean, half of you didn't even bother turning up, even the new leader didn't bother to turn up. I don't know why, it may have a good excuse, but again, Labour were nowhere to be seen, like their budget. So let's just use some simple maths. Let's use some simple maths, take note, because you might need it one day. So the Independents came up with the figures. They talked with the officers and they came up with the figures. 1.4 million for 6 months of restoring the black bins. And then, so 6 months, put that to 12 months, 2.8 million. This is for half of the borough. Simply just times it by 2 to get a cost for the whole borough. 5.6 million. Again, listen. 5.6 million to do one of your promises. So I hope the public, take note of this, because per annum, every annum, every year going forward, this is something that Labour want to do. I think the only thing that the public needs to be concerned about is, behind some glossy leaflet from Labour, there's a council tax bomb waiting to be dropped on the public. So be careful, because 5.6 million equates to a massive council
what's
tax
your point
rise.
of order? Sorry, thank you, Councillor Cannon.
3A.
Yeah.
The reason?
Yeah.
The way that the member is speaking to me.
Right. Yeah. Again, they can't listen. They can't understand simple maths. But they can't understand simple maths. But the public do. If you're going to put a 5.6 million promise in front of the public, that has to be paid for. Has to be paid for. The only thing that Labour know how to do is spend other people's money. And they're coming for you. They're coming for you. Your council tax. So watch out for a big council tax pay rise post-May if you trust this lot. Yeah.
Sorry, just very quickly, as a matter of observation in the room, if Councillor Smith, you stop making offensive comments to the Chief Executive.
Excuse me, what do you mean by offensive comments? This is a council chamber. This is not a ladies' tea shop.
It is a council chamber,
You can't
and I expect you to behave yourself as a leader in the community. Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Thank
offensive.
You.
What
Councillor
a cheek.
Larkin.
What a cheek, singling out members.
Thank you, Councillor.
Oh,
thank you, Deputy
Mayor.
Mayor.
Being rude. Thanks for telling me, Craig. Sorry, Mo. It was Craig.
Thank you, Councillor Deputy Mayor. It's
You're
nice to
muttering,
see you.
Rhoda.
Nice to see you smiling, Councillor Rimmer. And that was a wonderful photo opportunity, wasn't it? Next to the cinema, with the logo on the company that went bankrupt. Wonderful. No green routes in cinemas anywhere, even including the wonderful cinema at the Festival Leisure Park, where you have free parking, an array of wonderful restaurants, which I and Councillor Potter from the Labour Party can take credit for, because it's been a wonderful success, and it still is. And a wonderful turnover there, and it put Basildon on the map. How can the council profit when you're giving the new company that you've brought in, View, 3 million? I don't understand that. You can't have faith in them, because you wouldn't be saying, we're going to give you 3 million. They'd be standing on their own. Ask Robin Cinemas why they closed, Councillor Rimmer, when the town centre was a thriving hub, which it was. And it closed because no one went there. And you've opened it again, or going to. No research or thinking has gone into this project. Absolutely a disgrace. How to waste money. A taxpayer's money, at least. I'd just like to say, Councillor Baggott, crime is out of control in the town centre. Residents are frightened to go there at night, let alone go to the movies. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I call on the leader of the council, Councillor Baggott, 5 minutes to round up.
Oh, so much, so little time. Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. Well, Councillor Schrader, I'll be sad to see go, yet again drops another hint about his direction of travel, which eventually will sink in, I guess, and quite rightfully paid testament to the officers which I wholeheartedly endorse. Councillor Rimmer, quite rightfully again, mentioned the good work that Councillor Holliman did, and exactly what we would expect from scrutiny going forwards and engaging with the public, and also his vision of creative tech, which we all share. Councillor Sarge reflected on the importance of working effectively with town and parish councils, something that we will continue to do because, again, this is an administration built around engaging with partners and stakeholders and not trashing them. Councillor Sullivan, the money man, who is the glue that held everything together, and I want to thank him for all the work he's done over a decade now, I think, as the money man. And when we've seen other councils going to the wall, here we are setting a balanced budget, a financially efficient council with, despite Councillor Yaqub's assertions to the contrary, one of the lowest council tax hikes across the country. When you've seen others on average of 20% somewhere and 10% elsewhere, the modest amount that we did against the trying times we have is actually a testament to how well Councillor Sullivan has done over this time. Councillor Henry brought a very human element to how things go and the thing we do for residents with his bikes. And Councillor Moore reminded us of where we are in the local plan process. Councillor Canham rightly reminded us that the cinema is actually a public facility, and that's where the responsibility truly sits, something for the public. Councillor Larkin confirmed that she doesn't understand commercial financing, and then said a scare story about how unsafe it is to be in the town centre.
23A. Point of order, 23A. Point of order, Madam Mayor.
What's your point of order?
Well, you just disrespected my colleague, saying she don't understand about finance. If you can afford to fly, if you can afford to fly a plane, you understand about finance, let alone have a driving licence.
Thank you very much, Councillor Smith. Carry on, please. Back, Councillor Baggott.
Point of order, Madam Mayor. 23B.
And what's your point of order? So that's the point.
There's a B.
I propose that the member is no longer heard because he's being offensive.
Thank you very much. Councillor Baggott, please come.
Thank you. Councillor Yaqub started off cracking a joke, and this, so I'll respond in kind. As the leader of a a group that's shrinking quicker than her credibility on producing a budget, I'm not going to really take any lessons from her on anything. Maybe if she wants to go back to TikTok or Chatbot and do some other speeches, then I'll
Point of
take her
order,
a bit more
Madam
Point
Mayor.
of order. Sit
Point of
down.
order,
Sit
Madam
down.
Mayor.
For Christ's sake.
23A.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it,
Yeah.
Councillor Baggott. You don't understand how social media works and you're out of touch and outdated.
Sorry,
I understand.
You've raised a point of order.
Point of order is
Yes, 23A4.
the disrespect that he's just...
Hurty feelings is not a point of order.
Okay, so thank you very much. Councillor Baggott.
Thank you. It seems, I don't want to be offensive to Councillor Yacoub, it does seem the only card in her hand is the waste service. And of course, as has been reminded by a number of members, had she actually produced a budget which is credible to show how she's going to revitalise the waste service and do what she's promising now in election leaflets they're putting out, then maybe it would have been a little bit more credible with regard to what she's saying. In the same way, Councillor Harrison, I'd like to congratulate you on your appointment as I believe you are the potential Labour candidate for Billericay. Congratulations. If I can give you a tip, you can't be a one-trick pony. You can't swan around Billericay saying that the only thing in your box is that you're going to sort out waste, because the public just won't actually do that. You need to be a little bit broader if you aspire to be an MP. Councillor Smith, I want to thank you for your comments. You were indeed very measured at that particular point. I know it's gone a bit downhill since then, but you were very measured at that particular point. And I think you're actually quite right to be concerned about consultants. But unlike you, I do have a little bit more faith in professional people and think that to an extent, when you've got professionals in the medical profession, you have to trust them that they also recognise that they go into that business and profession to actually save lives, and therefore they will do that. And certainly my experience with Basildon Hospital, which is becoming more and more intimate as time goes on, I found them to be incredibly diligent in this regard, even to the point of organising appointments during weekends, Easter, evenings, in order to actually get procedures done. And I've spoken to numbers of residents that are actually at Basildon Hospital that are also really pleased with the fact that they are getting what they perceive to be a very, very sympathetic, empathetic and professional service. However, just because they're getting it now doesn't mean it can't go on, and I think the point is quite rightfully made that we do need to just continue to kick the tyres and continue to put pressure to make sure that the medical profession go about their business for our residents. I would take this opportunity to thank all those members who are not restanding for their service. It is a special sort of person that puts themselves up for this sort of thing. And also for any members that may fall by the time we return in May for their service as well as the officers who have been moving on and the time that they have spent. Their service is hugely appreciated and actually severely overlooked by both members and residents alike. I look forward in that regard to seeing those members that are successful back in the chamber next year. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We will now move to a vote. All those in favour? All those against? Any abstentions? One. An abstention. Unanimous. The vote is carried 23 for, 11 against and 1 abstention. Okay, we're moving on to the annual report of the Overview and Scrutiny Committees and Joint Standards Committee. I call on Councillor Wingfield, Chairman of the Overview and Scrutiny Commission, and Councillor Ademuyiwa, Chairman of the Joint Standards Committee, to move the report You have 10 minutes each, and you do not need a seconder. The night is young, we will carry on. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. I hope members will excuse me if I don't go through this report point by point. I'm on the verge of losing my voice. However, I would like to take this opportunity to thank Councillors Gascoigne, Turson and Holliman for their efforts in chairing the Place, People and Prosperity Committees respectively, and thanks to all members of all parties and of none for their efforts and cooperation in scrutiny meetings throughout the year. While these meetings don't always have the theatre value of these full council meetings, members do take the time and effort to question and challenge policies and decisions in a constructive way, even if we do sometimes stray off the path a little bit on occasion. So, Madam Deputy Mayor, without further ado, I believe the report speaks for itself and I submit it for members' consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ademirola.
Deputy Mayor. For those who don't know, with effect from June 2012, the Joint Standards Committee became responsible for promoting high standards of conduct by members and co-opted members of the authority. This period, there had been four new formal complaints received in 2023-2024. Of these complaints, 2 were made by a borough councillor and 2 by members of the public. All 4 complaints were against borough councillors. In 3 cases, the initial assessment made by the monitoring officer in consultation with one of the independent persons was that no further action be taken. 2 of the complaints were against the same councillor and related to the same incident. 1 complaint referred to the Joint Standards Committee to determine what action should be taken. Following consideration of the complaint by the Joint Standards Committee, it was resolved that an appropriate form of a public apology be written and verbally provided at the council meeting, and member training with officers provided to prevent any reckless dissemination of information in the future. 1 investigation, which is being undertaken in response to a complaint received in the previous municipal year, ceased during this municipal year when the councillor who was the subject of the complaint ceased to hold office. The activities undertaken by the Joint Standards Committee for the 2023-24 year includes training in respect to the new model member code of conduct, and we also had 4 meetings scheduled. 2 of those meetings were cancelled due to a lack of business. In conclusion, the Joint Standards Committee has operated effectively throughout the year. It's been a pleasure working with the members of the different parties and the officers who supported us. So it's operated positively and effectively throughout the year with positive contributions by local councillors and independent persons. Full council should take assurance regarding the work of the Joint Standards Committee and overall standards regime. The committee have already provided its work programme for the 2024-25 municipal year to ensure that it continues to be effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rimmer.
So, no, it's a very interesting report by Councillor Ademirola, and I'm just curious to know, obviously, 2 things, and I don't know if that could be addressed in your winding up. 1, whether the councillor who ceased to be a councillor will be held account again if they actually become a councillor in short time. And what would the sort of time limit be on that? Because I think an investigation should be carried on. And I believe there was another councillor who was in trouble in that respect. And basically, I want to know, would they be also potentially facing a further investigation if they returned? And the second one was really the councillor who was meant to make an apology. Have they now done so? Because I don't recall hearing any apology. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just on point 1, we're not allowed to make any comments at this stage, but proceed with question 2. Okay, thank you. Do you need a response to item 2, your second one? In Miwa, yes. Yes, okay, when she winds up. Okay, you'll go first. Yes, only. Are you doing it? Okay, so can you, sorry, Councillor Ademiwa, can you include it in your winding up speech? But we're going to Councillor Wingfield to round up.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Mayor. Yeah, as there's been no kind of questions or comments, again, just expressing my gratitude to all members who have participated in scrutiny and their cooperation throughout the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ademiwa.
Answering Councillor Rimmer's second question, if the member has apologised, the member has been informed that they need to offer an apology, but that hasn't been done to date as far as I'm aware.
You're winding up.
Is that the end, Councillor Ademiwa, of your rounding up? Okay. Nothing. Okay. All right. Okay.
Motions.
Okay. 2 motions. We have 1 motion to be moved by Councillor Yaku. It's almost over.
No break. It's been out.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor. In recent years, there has been a disturbing trend in our society's perception of women, a trend that perpetuates the notion that women can be treated as property, that feminism has overstepped its bounds, and that men are somehow victimised by its progress. Misogyny is being normalised and even promoted to our youth at unprecedented levels. In the face of such a toxic climate, it is imperative that we, as elected members, come together on a local level to address and combat this pervasive sickness. In the past weeks alone, our borough has witnessed troubling incidents. Mothers left shaken after encounters with masked men, women gripped by fear in violent attacks, and young girls falling victim to sexual assault. We cannot and must not allow these attacks on women in our borough to become a normalised part of public life. We are in dire need of tangible solutions, and a crucial step is educating our youth, particularly young men, about the gravity of gender-based violence. We must impart to our young boys the devastating impact of toxic ideologies being purported on social media. Young boys are being influenced with the belief that masculinity is under siege and that treating women as equals somehow undermines their own worth. For far too long, the burden has unfairly fallen on teaching women how to evade becoming victims of violent crime rather than tackling the ideologies that normalize male violence. This is not the society I wish to raise my daughters in. Suggestions like flagging down a bus or hiding under a car are not only absurd, but they also are a blatant slap in the face of women. These so-called solutions ridiculously shift the responsibility onto women. Even in our discussions about these attacks, there's a distressing tendency to focus solely on the woman as the victim, whilst neglecting to confront the man as the perpetrator of violence. This imbalance in discourse sustains a harmful narrative that perpetuates the cycle of gender-based violence. This is not a female problem. It's a problem of male entitlement and privilege, and it is essential that we shift the narrative that places the burden on the shoulders of women and refuses to address the root cause. I truly believe that change on a national level comes from those willing to take action and lead on a local level. This is our opportunity to come together on an issue that affects everyone in our borough. Whilst the government takes 2 weeks to decide whether remarks suggesting Diane Abbott should be shot and that looking at her makes you want to hate all black women are racist, misogynist, or merely inappropriate, we in Basildon have a chance to come together and unequivocally denounce those who normalise violence against women and girls. I've heard Councillor Baggott stand up in this chamber several times and proudly announce that drug dealers are not welcome in our borough. Will he stand up today to send a clear message that violence and hatred against women is also not welcome in our borough? Because before you is a motion advocating for an increase in patrols, funding for local organisations, educational initiatives, and stronger penalties. Considering that your administration has spent the last 3 years saying you're prioritising crime, I expect you'll do the right thing and support this motion.
Seconded by Councillor Joseph. Okay, go on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Deputy Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen of the Council, today I stand before you with a passion burning in my soul, fueled by the urgent need to address a grave injustice that plagues our society, the pervasive violence against young women in Basildon, with a particular emphasis on the disproportionate impact on women of colour. This is not merely an issue to discuss in passing. It's a pressing reality that steals the future and extinguishes the dreams of countless young women every single day. In our world today, young women face a barrage of threats to their safety, autonomy, and dignity. As we walk these streets, as we go about our daily lives, some women and girls live in constant fear. Fear of muggings, of physical alterations, of sexual assault. These are not just abstract fears. They are lived experiences for far too many in our community. And while we address these issues, we cannot forget the added layers of vulnerability that women of colour face. They endure not only the fear of violence, but they find themselves at crossroads of misogyny, racism, and systematic inequality, forced to navigate a hostile environment that diminishes their humanity and devalues their lives. This is the reality for far too many of our sisters, daughters, and friends. But let me be clear, this is not just about women of colour. This is about all women and girls, regardless of their race or background. Every woman and every girl deserves to feel safe and secure in their community. We cannot turn a blind eye to the suffering of young women regardless of their race or ethnicity. It is our duty as advocates for justice to stand in solidarity with all those who are marginalised and oppressed, amplifying their voices and fighting for their rights. We cannot continue to tolerate a society where violence against women and girls is normalised or brushed aside. Violence against women and young women is not just a crime, it is a symptom of a larger societal sickness. A sickness rooted in male privilege and devaluation of women's lives. It's a sickness that infects our communities, our institutions, and our hearts, corroding the very foundations of our humanity. It's time to challenge harmful attitudes and behaviours that perpetuate sexism, misogyny, and racism. We must challenge the toxic masculinity that normalises and excuses violence against women. We must confront the racism that dehumanises and marginalises people of colour. But our fight does not end there. We must also work to dismantle the systems of oppression that uphold and perpetuate this violence. We must create spaces where all young women, regardless of their race or ethnicity, can thrive, and where they can feel safe, valued, and empowered to fulfill their full potential. It's time to hold perpetrators accountable for their actions, and ensure that survivors receive the support and resources they need to heal and rebuild their lives. It's time to create a culture of respect, equality, and empathy. A culture where every individual is valued and honoured. Let us stand together in solidarity with all women and girls who have been affected by violence. Let us be their allies, their advocates, and their champions. And let us work tirelessly until every woman can walk the streets of Basildon or any other community without fear, knowing that they are safe, valued, and respected. Thank you.
That's hard. Thank you. Councillor Baggott.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Mayor, and congratulations to Councillor Joseph on her maiden speech. Let me be unequivocal. Violence against women or girls by anyone is the lowest order of the human race. Scumbags, lower than scumbags. But it's not just violence against women and girls. We've only got to be minded of Brianna Gay to realise that violence can also apply to those people that are now in the world of transitioning and everything else, and the lack of understanding that they get as well. And tolerance needs to be universal. And let's go one further. Violence is unacceptable. It doesn't matter what your gender or what your denomination, violence from one human being to another is unacceptable. Yeah. Now, I respect Councillor Yaqub's words and the motion and the spirit it is, and I would support it. And I'm going to explain a little bit of detail as to where we're going to go. Safer Basildon has a statutory duty to reduce crime and disorder and antisocial behaviour in the borough, and has several priorities tackling the key crimes that matter to residents locally. The priorities include protecting vulnerable people from abuse, harm and exploitation, with a focus on violence against women and girls. I will give you an overview of the work that is doing to tackle these issues locally. First of all, we have Operation Minerva. Operation Minerva is a county-wide project in partnership with Nottingham Trent University, where Minerva zones were identified as risky places that have crime generators or attractors, including education, transport hubs, nighttime economy and open spaces, creating vulnerability in relation to violence against women and girl offences in public spaces. Safer Basildon selected 3 lower super output areas as they were high volume zones, or within the top 10 volume neighbourhoods. I apologise for technicality, but it's important we understand where we're going and we get this right. Although incidents were relatively low in these areas, they weren't areas where violence against women and girls were previously considered to be an issue, and therefore weren't already seeing as much partnership activity. The 3 current Minerva zones are Wickford High Street, Holy Cross, Whitmore Way, and Basildon Hospital, and a small section of the Nares. Safer Basildon successfully bid for £10,000 from the PFCC to implement a women's safety charter to tackle violence against women and girls in these areas, and we're working with a gender equality consultant to formulate a charter that recognises that behaviours must be addressed where women and girls feel unsafe. The Charter is being developed using data and statistics, but most importantly, the perceptions and feedback from women and girls who live, work or visit the borough. A survey to obtain feedback ran for 3 weeks in February, and 250 responses were received. Focus groups have also taken place with council staff, and further opportunities for focus groups are being organised currently. As part of the Charter, local businesses and organisations can pledge to prioritise women's safety by ensuring their place is a safe, respectful and inclusive place to be. Signing up to the Charter will mean pledging their support to a range of tasks, including training and prioritising women and girls' safety. To ensure a lasting legacy, additional funding was successfully obtained from Safer Streets to develop a media campaign to launch the Charter, and this will include the development of a film highlighting women's safety and the part that everyone can play in tackling the issue. The Community Safety Team was successful in securing £400,000 external funding from the Home Office Safer Streets funding, which focused primarily on violence against women and girls. The projects within the funding are as follows: a women's safety media campaign, developing the production of a campaign film. This will include the full production of the film and a campaign book, providing all the guidance and content to effectively communicate the campaign across all platforms. There will be posters, leaflets and window stickers to support the rollout and promotion of the campaign. We are keen for the campaign and Charter to achieve a wider reach across the community, and we are committed to tackling violence against women and girls. 4 additional community safety wardens deployed to target the VAWG hotspots as identified by Opminerva, and using data and crime trends to respond to incidents. And this will start in April. Madam Mayor, I hope you'll give me a bit of leeway because this is important. Councillor Yacoub has raised it. There is a lot of detail here. I think it's important that people hear it. But if I am told to shut up, I will get to the end. The patrols will be intelligence and data-led, as we know a uniform presence makes women and girls feel safer, and was one of the key findings from staff surveys at Basildon Hospital and also the perception survey. The wardens will act as safe and trusted officers, assisting individuals who feel unsafe by waiting with them or helping them to find a safe way home. Their presence will increase feelings of safety, ensuring they're patrolling in response to incidents in the community, in areas where women have told us they do not feel safe, and allow them to intervene where inappropriate behaviour is witnessed. Joint patrols with Essex Police will also be undertaken to evidence the partnership response to tackling violence against women and girls. We now have a domestic abuse and violence against women and girls officer, which funding has been allocated to fund this person within the Safer Basildon Hub to focus on domestic abuse and violence against women and girls, to include information sharing to safeguard victims, assist in partnership crime prevention activity, gathering information and intelligence, receiving incidents daily, and ensuring a partnership approach to respond and providing a victim-centred approach to managing domestic cases. The post will be in place from the end of March this year for 12 months, and it's an exciting opportunity to have a role focusing on the violence against women and girls in the borough, as well as domestic abuse. A local charity bar and bus has been funded to run an empowerment project for young girls, focusing on different theme sessions, including physical activity, relationships, health and life skills, to develop their confidence and build resilience through empowerment. One-to-one sessions will also be offered to those wanting or needing an additional level of coaching. There will also be delivered sessions in schools, focusing on healthy relationships for young people, focusing on consent, rights, expectations, and recognising abusive behaviours. Staff training is being done by a suite of e-learning modules available on the staff intranet, made available through the Southend Thurrock Domestic Abuse Board, which all staff are encouraged to undertake. And in addition, there are classroom online opportunities for enhanced domestic abuse awareness through Alpha Vesta, a recognised domestic abuse charity. And in fact, I attended one of the presentations that was done to staff earlier this year and found it incredibly enlightening. This training aims to help individuals recognise the sign of abuse in an early stage, understand the cycle of abuse and the ripple effect, how to signpost and support victims, and the next sessions will be taking place in November. We also have the White Ribbon Day, 16 Days of Activism, an organised range of pop-up community events with Changing Pathways, CEDA and the Council to raise awareness of domestic abuse and the services available. These pop-ups took place during the 16 Days of Activism in high footfall areas, including Wickford High Street, Pitsea Tesco and the Eastgate Centre. This culmination in an event for staff, as we recognise the importance of getting it right for staff as well as our communities and supporting anyone affected by abuse. Planning will begin in the coming months for this year's activity for 16 days of activism, building on the success last year. So that's how important we see it. However, the Cabinet is not the appropriate mechanism to further progress this and address any gaps in Councillor Coop's motion that I haven't covered in what I've said. The appropriate mechanism is scrutiny, which gives wider membership ownership, and so, in accordance with Council Procedure Rule 16 (J) IV, I put that the motion be referred to overview and scrutiny to consider the matter and report to the Cabinet.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Got a second.
Have you got a second now? Okay. Councillor Blake?
Do you want to speak on it?
No. Okay.
Formally second it.
Okay, formally. Okay, we're going straight to the vote. All in favour? All against? Any abstentions? Okay. Okay, the vote, sorry, can we have, thank you very much, thank you. The vote is carried, 24 for and 12 against. Okay. I just want to say thank you all very much for sitting through the meeting without a break. Very well done to all of us. I want to wish, thank you very much. I haven't finished yet. Can we all please remain seated? I have not finished yet. The meeting is still on. I want to say thank you so much to Councillor Sullivan for his decade of service to the council in doing managing our budget for the last 10 years. Thank you so much for your service. We do appreciate you and we wish you all the best for the future. For the rest of us, yep, you may go ahead. For the rest of us, I wish us all the best in May. Hope to see some of us back in the chambers anyway.
That is a backhanded comment.